Sup, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Wednesday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is some lighter who are people angry about today news. There's always someone, and today we had Justin Bieber pop up. This because Bieber posted a screenshot of his notes app where he wrote, "Hey world, that glamorous lifestyle you see portrayed by famous people on Instagram, don't be fooled thinking their life is better than yours. I can promise you it's not!" Exclamation point. And in response to this, there was support, especially from other verified famous people. And that ranged from like the Millie Bobby Browns of the world, more mainstream, to the Tana Mojo Mongoose Mabana Badabdas of the world. But then of course you had a lot of other people, if you scroll past all the verified comments, people who disagreed and at times were angry. One of the first examples, did you really say that their life isn't better than mine? Really? They are rich, they have their own mansion in LA, they have these nice ass cars that normal people can't afford, they get to travel all around the world, they get to go on adventures and go to wherever they desire. I've never got to live that life before, so don't even say your lives aren't better than mine. You've lived a life more than you can imagine so far, a life that I could never live and will never live. Another saying, this is some bullshit. Yes, everyone has their struggles, but celebrities have every opportunity afforded to them. Others of us are in high school all day and work 40-hour weeks just so our families can survive and so our baby siblings don't end up in foster care. Yes, money doesn't cause happiness, but it sure fucking helps. Take it from anyone living below the poverty line where we don't know if we're gonna make rent next month and we have to get free lunches from school as our only meal for the day. And here's what I'll say on this topic, because I've lived two completely different lives. I'm in a place now where things in general are pretty fucking great. I consider myself successful to a certain degree. And at the same time, as a young adult, I've lived that life where you're busting your ass. It seems like the hole that you are in is just getting deeper. It seems hard to just survive and feed yourself. So the one thing I will agree with Justin Bieber on is that what you see on Instagram, other social media, blah, 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 that is not representative of real life. Right? I mean, just think about any time you see people taking photos. It's like dead face, cheese. I mean, more than half of these famous people, I'm talking about mainstream and definitely online, they're often posting insane, over-the-top, showy pictures so they get some sort of validation, some sort of self-worth. And I say that obviously very critical, but also understanding, because it is a hole that's easy to fall into once you get people starting to pay attention to you. But to still say your life is not better than those who are less fortunate is really ignorant and disconnected, in my opinion. You can be dealing with your own personal struggles, right? You could be dealing with depression, feeling judged by the public, but at all times you have the tools that you need to deal with whatever situation you're gonna be in. And we'll use Justin Bieber as the example here. If Justin Bieber needs to get from point A to point B, he can use whatever mode of transportation that is imaginable. Meanwhile, other people might not be able to afford that plane ticket, a car, an Uber, a bus pass. Then there's obviously, can a person properly shelter themselves if they're living month to month, paycheck to paycheck? Can people properly eat? And that's a good number of people. I remember seeing a survey back in just 2017 where 39% of Americans had $0 in a savings account. 57% had less than $1,000. What if you not even break your leg, because oh my God, those costs. What if you just have to go to the hospital in the United States, which obviously then we get into a larger conversation. What if you, and it feels like this always happens, you finally paid off your car and then in 3 weeks, if something breaks, that one thing's gonna throw your entire life off. And according to a recent report from Career Builder, 78% of Americans that are working full-time say they are living paycheck to paycheck. And in that same report, when asking all US workers, 71% said that they are in debt. And understand, these are American-specific numbers I'm talking about, and even the bad here is pretty okay worldwide, right? So there's an even harsher disconnect worldwide. Money doesn't make you happy, but it shields you from the bullshit that life will constantly throw at you, and it will give you opportunities others do not have. And I get that famous people do have their own struggles, and we should never assume we know what's going on behind the scenes, but that is also in that statement that other famous people are praising. That's exactly what that statement does, but to people that don't have money. And I say this as someone that will acknowledge that I've become disconnected with certain things. But I also say this as someone that is incredibly thankful that I had to trudge through the bullshit of life in a very vulnerable, very bad place. Because that is one of the main things I credit with grounding me or bringing me back to earth when I start floating off and disconnecting. No matter how hard I worked for it, it's important to acknowledge that I'm lucky, I'm in a lucky situation, and it should be appreciated as such. But that is my personal mindset, of course. I gave you the story, my opinion, and now I'd love to hear from you in those comments down below. Then, if you haven't seen it yet, I really want to talk to you about Google Duplex. Google had their I.O. keynote yesterday, and they hit on several things. They introduced what they called the new Google News, covered smart displays. They showcased Gmail's Smart Compose, which will actually finish your sentences for you. which is pretty awesome. But also at the same time, it makes you realize how little in an email is unique. The rest are just kind of a dance that you go through to get to the real stuff. But the big thing that stood out to myself and many was the rollout and showcasing of Duplex, which is an AI that pretends to be human and will actually call and talk to a business for you. Here's an example of a haircut being scheduled.
So how can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for?
Just a woman's haircut for now.
Okay, we have a 10 o'clock.
10 a.m. is fine.
Okay, what's her first name?
The first name is Lisa.
Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Now I look at that and I get so excited, but also in the back of my head I'm a little bit terrified. I mean, anytime I get the option to not have to deal with another stranger that I am not connected to in any way whatsoever, I will take that option. Now that said, a thing that we need to keep in mind is this was a demo of most likely one of the best examples. Even the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, even said that some didn't go as expected, although how bad it was, we don't really know because they didn't play audio of it. On their blog, they did include an example at the bottom that it does sound somewhat disconnected, or the tone didn't match up to the regular conversation. But even that seemed pretty real. But once again, I really want to hit, we need to be wary of this. This is a demo, this is an example, right? Like, remember how awesome Siri seemed the first time that was demoed, and then you got a completely different experience when it was in your hands? Or to make it Google-centric, do you remember a Google Glass for the public? Or, oh man, remember the Pixel Buds, which Google had essentially been like, you can put these in your ear, talk to anyone speaking 40 different languages. Easy peasy. Real world implementation though, less than ideal according to some. It was just the Google Translate app, which you can get through any phone, and wireless headphones, which you can have any wireless headphones. Anyway, main point, I am very excited about the concept, but ultimately, like with everything we talk about, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But from that, I wanna share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome brought to you by nordvpn.org/Phil. And if you're not familiar, VPNs allow users to securely access a private network and share data remotely through public networks. Kind of like how a firewall protects your data on your computer, VPNs protect it online. And NordVPN has thousands of super fast servers in 61 countries, and there is absolutely no data logging. It's user-friendly, it can secure your browsing on desktop as well as Android and iOS, and you can try it out all risk-free. There is a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you really can't go wrong. And so if you want to start protecting your internet experience today with 77% off a 3-year plan, go to nordvpn.org/Phil. And the first bit of awesome today is we got the Honest Game trailer for God of War. Side note, such a unique and important opinion here, but God of War is fantastic. The reality of the game lived up to the hype for me. Then, if you like the Donald Glover, a Kanye Place sketch on SNL, they just released the behind the scenes of making that sketch. We got a trailer for Alex Strangelove. We had Matthias showing us 10 of the world's smallest working products. Also, in addition to all the other fantastic designs we sell over at shopdefranco.com on shirts, on hoodies, on whatever, every now and then we do just fun short runs of certain shirts, and today that is the Technically Savage shirt. So if you want to snag that while you can, link to that down below. If you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. Then in fantastic international news, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is returning with 3 Americans that were held prisoner in North Korea. One had been detained since October of 2015, the other 2 had been detained for a year. And I mention that because it appears there was confusion about this situation thanks to a Trump tweet. On May 2nd, Donald Trump tweeted, "As everybody is aware, the past administration has long been asking for 3 hostages to be released from a North Korean labor camp, but to no avail. Stay tuned." That's just not true. Dong Chul was arrested late 2015, and the other 2 were arrested and detained once Trump was already president. So just throwing that out there. And these 3 were convicted in North Korea for espionage, committing hostile criminal acts with an aim to subvert the country, and committing hostile acts against the state. And all 3 were sentenced to 10+ year terms of hard labor. But the main point here is it's great news. 3 Americans now released. And reportedly they were in good enough health to walk to the plane on their own. And so here I just have to say good job to Mike Pompeo, Donald Trump, and anyone else involved with this specific situation. But also on that note, Donald Donald Trump was in the news for several other reasons today. One that stood out to me was this morning he tweeted, "Fake news is working overtime." Just reported that despite the tremendous success we are having with the economy and all things else, 91% of the network news about me is negative, parentheses, fake. Why do we work so hard in working with the media when it is corrupt? Take away credentials, question mark? And what I'll say to that is I have my own issues with various news outlets, with media coverage in general. But to say that negative coverage of you is fake coverage is insanity. Correction, it makes sense coming from Donald Trump because this has been his game plan for the most part. Bash media, cast doubt on media, praise media that gives him positive coverage. Right, the Fox and Friendses, the Sean Hannitys of the world, he's giving them shout outs on Twitter. But in addition to that, it is either pure insanity or pure ignorance to believe that all negative coverage about Donald Trump is fake news. Just as it would be insane to say that all positive news coverage about President Trump is fake. Especially when you take into account a lot of the negative coverage on Trump is literally just replaying something Trump said at a later time. And then to question, but really it's a threat to say, should we pull their credentials because they're covering me in a negative light? That's just plain un-American. That's authoritarian. That's an attack on the First Amendment. But from there, the last thing I want to talk about today is Trump's pick for CIA Director Gina Haspel. So who is Gina Haspel? She was Deputy Director of the CIA and is now acting head after Pompeo's departure. She's been with the agency for over 30 years, and if her nomination is approved, she'll be the first woman to ever run the agency. And as far as why everyone is so focused on this nomination, other than it being a very, very important position, well, that is because of her connection to post 9/11 black sites, secret prisons where they interrogated and waterboarded people, and her involvement in the destruction of video evidence of those things. And regarding the destruction of evidence, you have people saying she is 100% responsible for that. She should not be in a position of power because of that. Whereas others have been defending her, saying no, she was just following orders. And the reason they're saying that is in 2005, Haspel served as chief of staff to the head of the CIA's counterterrorism center, Jose Rodriguez. And according to Rodriguez's memoir in 2005, he ordered the destruction of dozens of the investigation videotapes. And so Rodriguez was the one who officially gave the order, and then Haspel drafted the cable or confidential telegram that ordered the destruction of the tapes. And that was also confirmed last month when a classified memo written by then CIA Deputy Director Michael Morell was declassified to show that Haspel had indeed drafted the cable. However, that memo also stated that Haspel had acted appropriately. This because she drafted the cable on the direct orders of Mr. Rodriguez. She did not release that cable. It was not her decision to destroy the tapes, it was Mr. Rodriguez's. And it was a nearly 3-year investigation into the destruction of the tapes. It was launched by a special prosecutor, but it ended in 2010 and no charges were filed. So that's kind of the simplified backstory here. Now, after the nomination, there were a lot of reactions. We saw Senator John McCain chime in, tweeting, "The torture of detainees in U.S. custody during the last decade was one of the darkest chapters in American history. The Senate must do its job in scrutinizing the record and involvement of Gina Haspel in this disgraceful program." Which really wasn't a shocking response. John McCain, of course, was a prisoner of war. He was tortured for a tremendous amount of time. Republican Senator Rand Paul also speaking out against this nomination, saying, "I find it just amazing that anyone would consider having this woman at the head of the CIA." We also got a joint statement from Dem Senators Dianne Feinstein, Martin Heinrich, and Ron Wyden, where they called for much more information to be declassified about Haspel's oversight of the prison and involvement with the destruction of videotapes, saying, "Miss Haspel is not an undercover operative. She's the deputy CIA director seeking a cabinet-level position. It's unacceptable for the CIA to hide her behind a wall of secrecy, particularly when such secrecy is unnecessary to protect national security. Concealing her background when no sources and methods are at stake shows nothing but contempt for the Senate and the public." Wyden going even further, essentially calling this a CIA cover-up, saying, "I'm very familiar with the classified material. I think the vast amount of this can be declassified. I think the agency is covering up her background because if the American people knew what I knew, I think there would be many senators who would say, look, there's no choice but to reject her confirmation." We also had people like Senator Richard Burr, he's chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, saying that she has the right skill set, experience, and judgment. There's also been this kind of media push of why so many people that work for the CIA or have worked for the CIA in the past actually respect and support Haspel. Then after all those initial reactions, all the media coverage, there was this whole back and forth of Haspel was maybe going to withdraw her nomination. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Mark Short, they talked to her for hours. There's all of a sudden a lot of support around her. But for the sake of time, we're going to jump to what happened today. Because today, Haspel testified in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And I'll link to the full testimony down below so you can see the entire thing, but let's hit some of the key points. In her opening remarks, she says that she knows that many people want to know about her views on the interrogation programs of past, and she says,
"Having served in that tumultuous time, I can offer you my personal commitment, clearly and without reservation, that under my leadership, on my watch, CIA will not restart a detention and interrogation program."
She was then asked by senators to describe her role in the destruction of that video evidence, and she gave this response in regard to the who and why of that question.
There was a great deal of concern about the security risks posed to CIA officers who were depicted on the tapes. Those security issues centered on the threat from al-Qaeda should those tapes be irresponsibly leaked. Mr. Rodriguez, who was the DDO at the time, the Deputy Director for Operations, has been very upfront and has made it clear on a number of occasions publicly that he and he alone made the decision to destroy the tapes.
Then we had this back and forth regarding a question on Donald Trump and waterboarding.
President Trump repeatedly expressed his support for waterboarding. In fact, he said we should go beyond waterboarding. So if the CIA has a high-value terrorism suspect in its custody, and the president gave you a direct order to waterboard that suspect, what would you do?
Senator, I would advise, I do not believe the president would ask me to do that.
And before moving forward, the initial part of her response was concerning and confusing to many people because President Trump has proven, as he is president, that the things that he has said before to get elected, that he actually follows through on it. Taxes, the travel ban, the wall, Paris Agreement, most recently the Iran deal. But that said, she talks about how other agencies interrogate and then ultimately gives this response.
But CIA does not today conduct interrogations. We never did historically, and we're not getting back in that business.
Then we had Senator Angus King asking Haspel about who is deciding to classify information about Haspel's own record at the CIA.
Senator, we are following the existing guidelines. There are very...
Who's deciding?
We are following the existing
Who is we?
Well, I have chosen to follow the guidelines that exist for the RDI information.
You are making the classification decisions about what material should be released to this committee?
I am electing not to make an exception for myself, but I am adhering to existing RDI guidelines.
We also had an interesting back and forth when Haspel was asked if the interrogation techniques were immoral.
Senator, I believe that CIA officers to whom you referred...
It's a yes or no answer. Do you believe the previous interrogation techniques were immoral? I'm not asking, do you believe they were legal? I'm asking, do you believe they were immoral?
Senator, I believe that CIA did extraordinary work to prevent another attack on this country, given the legal tools that we were authorized to use.
Please answer yes or no. Do you believe in hindsight that those techniques were immoral?
Senator, what I believe sitting here today is that I support the higher moral standard we have decided to hold ourselves to.
Can you please answer the question?
Senator, I think I've answered the question.
No, you've not. Do you believe the previous techniques, now armed with hindsight, do you believe they were immoral? Yes or no?
Senator, I believe that we should hold ourselves to the moral standard outlined in the Army Field Manual.
We also had Harris ask Haspel if she thinks that torture works.
Senator, I don't believe that torture works. I believe that in the CIA's program, and I'm not attributing this to enhanced interrogation techniques, I believe, as many people, directors who have sat in this chair before me, that valuable information was obtained from senior al-Qaeda operatives that allowed us to defend this country and prevent another attack.
Is that a yes?
No, it's not a yes. We got valuable information from debriefing of al-Qaeda detainees, and I don't think it's knowable whether interrogation techniques played a role in that.
And like I said, these are just some of the key points. I'll link to the full thing down below. This is going to be an interesting vote, though, because ultimately most of the conversation around Haspel boils down to, should Haspel be held responsible or become a scapegoat? Because the CIA, post 9/11, fearing that another attack could come at any moment, used interrogation techniques that they thought were legal thanks to the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel saying it was legal. Should she be held responsible for that? And secondly, should she be held responsible or made a scapegoat because she drafted a cable at the orders of her boss, an order that Rodriguez and Haspel argue they made so that they could protect people in the CIA from being identified? There's always the potential for retribution attacks when you're dealing with extremists. And so I want to pass that question off to you. What is your takeaway from this story? Are you against her nomination? Are you for her nomination? Any thoughts and opinions? I'd love to know all of them in the comments down below. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. And if you like this video, hit it with a like. If you're new here, hit subscribe, and no matter what, make sure you ring that bell so you get notifications for these daily videos. And actually, if you missed yesterday's show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you want something lighter, you can watch a brand new vlog. But that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.